Hi everybody, I'm Bill Sanders and this is Watch Art Sci, the art and science of watch collection. Today we're going to talk about regulators, but before we get started I wanted to say something about the types of regulators. There's basically two types of regulators. One is, I looked it up, this was in George Daniels' book on watchmaking, and if you're going to be a watchmaker, I would highly recommend it. But even the watchmakers, I know you don't read this thing from cover to cover. You simply look up stuff as you need to use it. And what I found in here is what is called the curve regulator. And the curve regulator regulates the pins that adjust the spring that will help your watch run faster or slower. That's not the kind of regulator that we're talking about. Instead, oh, by the way, too, Ryan Schmidt's got a really good book called The Watchmaker's Handbook. For collectors, this is very handy. And he does a good job of differentiating these two types of regulators. So that's another book that you might want to pick up if you haven't seen it yet. Okay, now a regulator is really fairly simple. You have a standard dial with everything around the center, hour hand, minute hand, and second hand. Sometimes we'll have a second subdial, but that's about it. I'll look at this one. This is a dual time. It's got a bunch of dials and things. All right. Now, a regulator dial has all of the hands in a separate area. They're running on a separate gear. Well, they run on separate gears anyway, but they're placed in different around the watch, the dial of the watch. Here, for example, this is your typical one. You have a small seconds, or small dial, I should say, a subdial at 12 o'clock and 6 o'clock. The one at 12 o'clock has the hours. The one at 6 o'clock has the seconds, like a regular small seconds. And then the sweep hand just has the minutes. And it was, a lot of people say, oh my God, well, what did they do that for? It was actually to help read it because you could separate them all, and depending on what you were looking at. Now, the original regulators was a finely tuned clock that was where the watchmakers were working. They would use a regulator to regulate the watches that they were making. That's why it's called the regulator. And here's one of the early ones, and they had pendulums, sometimes multiple pendulums, but they were set very finely. And so this is where the name came from, in the style of the arrangement of the hands on the face. All right, so let's go shopping for a regulator, and what I found, they're all over the place. And the best part for collectors is that they have all different price levels. And the brand new 2018, this Tissot L.U.C automatic regulator just came out. They have three of them. They range in price from $795 to $950. They all run on an ETA 2825.2 automatic. So if it's something that you'd like to have or add to your collection, these are fairly affordable. Also, too, Hamilton has one called the Jazzmaster regulator. I like the looks of this one. It's got the sort of a subdial at 11 o'clock and then another one at 5 o'clock. And the hour one is at 10 or 11, and the second one is down there at around 4 or 5. And then you have the minute hand on in the sweep. And now this one's $12.75. That's a pretty decent price. But to me, the most interesting thing about this watch is that it has an ETA movement that they have named the H12 that was made exclusively for Hamilton. And this is sort of an interesting kind of thing because Parmigiani has its movements made for it by Vaucher, but if Michel Parmigiani designs one and says, look, this is the one I want, Vaucher will make that for Parmigiani and nobody else. Well, this is a similar, but not exactly the same relationship. which I thought was sort of an interesting thing to run across. This is a pretty new one too, 42 millimeters. I think it's a fairly attractive watch. All right, moving right along, Thomas Ninchritz regulator. This one is, to me, is a beautiful example of a regulator. Very clean, very simple. It's got a 42 millimeter case, and it has this great big old Unitas 3498-1 and running it. And so when you flip it over, you see the whole case is nicely filled with a movement rather than a little bitty one in the middle of it. This is a beautiful watch. I really like it. I said, well, 3540 is pretty steep for something with an ETA, and I wouldn't disagree with that. But in Thomas Ninchritz watches, they do add a couple things. One is they add a second stop to it, and two, the other thing they did, trying to think what it was. Well, anyway, they did something else, and I think it's in it's in the regulator, the movement regulator part of it. Anyhow, great looking watch. Love this watch. Now, one of the companies, Chronoswiss regulator, they actually have several. I have 2 or 3 or 4 of them. I forgot how many, but they have, I think, at least 3. And the thing about Chronoswiss, companies like Chronoswiss, when they have a honest to God in-house movement, and then they have one with ETA, but they call it something else. Now, this particular one, the big one on the left, is called a flying regulator open gear, and you can look at that. And that's sort of interesting. And then you have, of course, you have the regulator style of hands in it. And it's $6,600. Like, that's fairly steep, really steep, for a watch with ETA in it. Now, the Regulator 30 jumping hours, that's much more interesting. It's got an in-house 283, Chronoswiss 283 in it. And it's got a jumping hour window at 12 o'clock. And then it has a big dial with the minutes and then the small seconds at 6 o'clock. There's some really interesting watches with the regulator. There are some more regulators. If you want to go take a look, you can look up Chronoswiss. This Alanga Azuna, this is just flat out a gorgeous watch. It's a hand wound watch, which is my favorite type. It's $85,000 and it comes in platinum. It's like a beautiful, wonderful watch that is extremely high price. I'm not sure why they have it that high, but they do. And it's got sort of a large subdial for the minutes, and then it's got the Roman numerals for the hours, and then it has the numbered in red for the seconds. Gorgeous watch. Whoa. All right. Now, they have another one, too, that I like. So I put 2 up here for Alanga Azuna. This is the Zeitwerk. And the Zeitwerk has jumping hours and minutes. And then it has a power reserve indicator at around between 1 and 11. And then at 6 o'clock, there's a small seconds. So this is also a legit regulator because all of the time indicators are on different elements. 77,900 is pretty hefty. All right, this next one is a Chopard L.U.C. regulator. It has a power reserve indicator at 12 o'clock. It's got a GMT at 9 o'clock. It has the hours at 3 o'clock, and then it's got the seconds at 6 o'clock, and then it has the minutes going around the outside. This one is a $32,000 watch. It's a pretty hefty price, too, on these. A lot of these things are really expensive, 43 millimeters. But this one does a lot more to you than just arrangement with the regulators. It has quite a few things going on it. Now, this one is one of the most interesting ones I found, and they don't make it anymore. It's a Vacheron Constantin dual time regulator chronometer. It's a reference 42005. reason to put the reference number there, you can still find them in either pre-owned. There might even be some condition 0 out there. But they've got a lot of stuff going for them. Now, at 12 o'clock, they have the hours, and they have the sweet minute hands. But it's a dual time, and so at 9 o'clock, the subdial there is for another time zone. At 6 o'clock is the only place where they put two indicators together, two hands. One is for the day of the month, and then the other one is the small seconds. To me, this watch is something that you might be able to find some really good buys on it. There was one that seemed to have sold for around 5,000. The one I found that hadn't been sold, I think they wanted 17 or 18,000 for it. But this is a watch that I'm sort of going to be keeping an eye on. If it pops up at a good price, it would be one I'd be very interested in. All right. Now, Philippe, Patek Philippe annual calendar. Boy, this thing's got a lot of stuff going for it. It has a regulator style display. This is how Patek Philippe describes it, regulator style display, rather than saying, here's our regulator, that's an annual calendar. All right, it has 3 windows. At about 10 o'clock, it's got the day of the week. At 2 o'clock, it's got the month. And then at 6 o'clock, it has the day of the month. And the subdial at 12 o'clock is the hours. At 6 o'clock, the subdial is the seconds. And then it has the minute sweep hand. $49,900. Man, these guys are just like, that's why I had, looking at that Tissot and Hamilton are looking pretty good. All right. This is another one that I really like. I mean, I like them. I like so many of them. But this is another one. It's $32,000 for a Glashütte original. Senator chronometer regulator. Caliber 5804. Of course, it's in hand. Now, this is another one. It's manual wind. I love manual wind, so naturally I'm partial to this one. And again, it's got the hour at 12, the minute, the seconds at 6, the minutes on the sweep hand, power reserve indicator at 9 o'clock, and then it's got that great big date window at 3 o'clock. And another one, $32,000. So man, that's a lot. Now here's the final one, and I really like this one. It's very simple. It's got a 72-hour power reserve. It's got it is an automatic, but it has a micro rotor, and usually with a micro rotor, you can see more of the movement. That's what I like best about micro rotors. Now the pricing on this thing, and after looking at some of the other ones, it's not so bad for Laurent Ferrier. It's called the Gallet Regulator. It's $55,000 in white gold and $40,000 in stainless steel. That's like $15,000 if they use the difference between the cases. I don't know if that's what it costs them, but it would cost anybody else who's buying them. I can't tell the difference between stainless steel and white gold and platinum, and I've got watches with each one of those, and they all could be platinum or they could all be stainless steel. This one is this one stainless steel or white gold? All right, so Laurent Ferrier, that's the one I really, really like that one. And just beautiful. I like the design of it. Okay, well, that's Regulators. And I don't know if it's just something you'd like to add to your collection or not. I found it very interesting, something to keep an eye out for. Like I mentioned, I especially like that Vacheron Constantin. If I could find it at a good price, I like the looks of that Thomas Ninchritz. I love the Laurent Ferrier. Of those 3, one I can't afford, and that's the Laurent Ferrier. But still, I like it. Okay, let's get your opinions and what you think is something you'd like or not. And of course, this is an invitation to subscribe if you'd like. So until next time, this is Bill Sanders with Watch Art Side, the art and science of watch collection.